Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. This is your first time here. Welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or a tutor. Hey, even comedy fans who enjoy watching the stars of the future in those dingy pub basements we seem to inhabit. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the center of it. Today's guest is someone who has a lot of Latina flair, but please, please, please never, ever refer to her as Colombian. Please welcome to the stage. It's Gracie M. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast.
It's okay.
Now shaking up the diversity quota.
Hey, it depends who comes along.
Yeah, right.
We do our
No, it's
best.
true. London has a lot of people from everywhere, but I don't think you've had other Latin Americans on your show.
I don't think so. No, we've had Australians, we've had people from Singapore,
Okay.
but not South Americans. No.
Well, there you go.
So how do you find it being South American in London doing comedy in English?
Well, I mean that's the thing, right? When I started doing stand up, I people tell you, lean into your uniqueness and whatever else. So
Yeah.
obviously was leaning a lot into the South American thing, the Venezuelan thing. So I like it because I have like my very own thing. At the same time, so sometimes I find it a little bit frustrating because some when I get on a stage and I'm like, oh, I'm from Venezuela, people just sometimes just make a face like, what is that? And it's just like, oh god, it's like I said the most obscure thing in the whole world, and they and so it gets a little bit of a, oh, it's a while for them to kind of understand what my whole thing is about.
Yeah.
But sometimes like right away they're like, oh well, yeah, and then they're on board. So yeah, I think for some people it feels just like very remote and obscure. I don't think it is that much. When I gig in Barcelona, because that I go there often, there's a lot of South Americans, there's a lot of Argentinians, way more than here. Of
Yeah.
course, I mean the Spanish language, whatever. It's like, oh, okay, they get it right away. But yeah, so sometimes it's not even the best idea to start with that. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure that out. Yeah, and people are a bit like, yeah, they ask me, you know what people ask me a lot, like recommendations for empanadas in Elephant and Castle. I'm like, I don't know, go to TripAdvisor. What do I know? Also, those places are mostly Colombian, actually. And I love Colombian food. Don't get me wrong; it's great.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing comedy then, whether it's over here or in Venezuela or what? How's the history? What is the background?
No, I never did comedy in Venezuela because that's the thing. Like, it's such a. I mean, nowadays it's like way worse than when I was growing up. Yeah, the thing is that you come out of like uni or sorry of school, and look, imagine I wanted to study fashion, and my parents were like, "No, you're not. You get a real career." So I mean, the idea of comedy that doesn't even exist. That's
Right.
like no. So my idea of comedy was like this sketch show I grew up watching, which still to this day, I mean, some of those sketches have aged really terribly because they're very racist and homophobic and misogynistic. But
Yeah.
it was Venezuela 30 years ago, so whatever. And to me, that was comedy. It wasn't the classiest show, so it was like, well, I love watching this show, but I'm not gonna do that. No, it wasn't until I moved to London in 2013. No, I wasn't. And I was just studying a degree here. I wasn't really into any of that. I started doing improv when I moved to Barcelona. So that's kind of how it started. I started doing improv because I had a job I hated. And I was like, I need something to take my mind off this. And I did improv for a bunch of years. I still do it occasionally. I don't do it as often because I've been more focused on the stand up. And then in Barcelona, at the Comedy Clubhouse, there was an improv jam that I used to sort of help run. So they moved it to the Comedy Clubhouse in Barcelona, which is basically a stand up club. And
Okay.
in English, I started to hang out with a lot of comedians, and everyone was like, "Why don't you try stand up? Why don't you try stand up?" And I was like, "No, no, no, I do improv." The typical, rivalry or whatever of between improvisers and stand-up comedians, that they don't respect each other, whatever. It's a bit of a myth. I don't think that's entirely true. Then I wrote some jokes and I did like a 3-minute mic. They do the shitty mic on Mondays. I was absolute shit, of course, because I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I
Yeah.
can do this. I was like, with all my improv confidence, I can do this. And I was absolute shit. And then I thought, actually, you know what? This takes a bit of thought. Like, maybe I should take a course. And then when I moved to London, I took a course just because I thought it's going to be fun. I just want to
Yeah.
figure out like what I want to know what the mechanics of it are, how it works more or less. That's the reason. Some people don't take courses. For me, I need a little bit of structure.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a very structured person in general, so I just need like the framework. And also, you're surrounded by other people that want to do more or less the same thing, which helps. And then I wrote my first 5 minute set that actually had some punchlines. And I just started gigging that around London for a while. I think I did those 5 minutes for at least 50 times. And then I've just, for some reason, I'm still doing this. I don't know why.
I think we all have those moments sometimes, don't we? You kind of go, why am I doing this? And then you realize that when it goes well, it's immense fun.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, that's the reason why. That's why I love doing this. So how long
Yeah.
have you actually been doing stand-up then?
It's roughly 2 years.
Hmm.
And, it's been fun. It's been fun. It's interesting. Even growing up, I think my friends always thought I was a bit of a funny person, which I think is the case with a lot of people that do end up in comedy. But it's one thing to be funny with your friends. It's one thing to try to be funny on a stage and to a bunch of people that have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
And I've realized that, yes, there's definitely a side of me that is a comedian or a bit of a clown and just wants to make people laugh. But the industry I work on my day-to-day is just like so the opposite of that.
Okay.
In that sense, it's kind of fun to discover that side of yourself and what you can, I don't know, put out in the world, I guess, to make people laugh.
Yeah, I don't know about yourself with your main job, but my main job is just it's very regimented in what we do and how we do it, and there's no real creative element to it. It's nice to be able to do a bit of comedy or the podcast and stuff like that, and actually create things that people enjoy watching and listening to and stuff like that. And it's a nice break from the same old stuff that you do in, day out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know how to describe my job because I've done so many things, but it's like, my background is in journalism. And sometimes you get commissioned articles that are very exciting to write, and you interview a lot of really good, like very interesting people. And I love that side of it. But, journalism pay rates are not the best. I can definitely not live off journalism alone. So, you take other commercial jobs. So let's say you need creativity for that. You need to be creative. But at the end of the day, writing 1,000 product descriptions of some brand is not is not the funnest thing in the world.
No, I can imagine.
Because there are only so many ways you can say soft to the touch and expertly crafted jeans or whatever. It's just like, I don't know if I'm unemployed or freelance anymore. I guess I'm like, I'm freelance. I'm like, unemployed as. And sometimes you do get some things around it that are creative, but to be honest, most of the time the stuff that may pay the bills, and it's not like they pay great, it's not really the creative stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to move more towards that, but it's difficult, I guess.
Yeah. So with the comedy then, let's relive some good and best and worst moments on stage.
Oh man, so many terrible moments. What do I pick? Well, I can tell you about one I had. Was it last week? Oh god, it was so bad. I jumped on like very last minute at the Big Belly Gong Show.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've moved it to South Bank, so it's like this little room. I don't know if it's worse than before now, because also why do we do this to ourselves, going to a gong show? Why?
I know.
So I jumped because I arrived like 5 minutes before they were starting, and I was like, oh, can I still put my name in the hat, whatever? And they were like, yeah, and they just called me to go up first, which I was not expecting at all. The room was still cold, I just got very nervous because I was not expecting to go first. And they give you 1 minute of grace at that gong show.
Yeah.
they couldn't wait until the minute was over. They were like, when they heard the ding, like all the dogs went up, and I was like, shit. It was so bad. I was like, actually, when I was like 30 gigs in, I won that gong show. I still don't know how that happened. When they used to do it at the big place in Vauxhall, and it
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
packed that day. There was like, I don't know, more than 100 people. I think I know why. I think that day, yeah, obviously I didn't go on first. People were already very drunk. It was like 2 days after the coronation, and I had like a couple of topical jokes about King Charles, and I think they liked them. So that brought them on board right away. And then I just started, yeah, it was one of those days when I said I'm from Venezuela, and they were all like, what? And I got some laughs, but the dongs went up, and it was just like, shit. You start to like question everything. But it was, I mean, yeah, probably I was shit. But at the same time, it was, going first in a gong is never easy.
No, no, it's one of those. I think sometimes it can go one of two ways, kind of, in that some people go, well, actually, we'll give this person a chance because it's the first person. But then you get the other ones, which if the crowd's a bit more rowdy, they're just like, the people that hold the dongs or the cars and suddenly feel empowered to do something with them. And I've seen it at shows where somebody's put the card up against somebody, literally on the 2-3 minute mark or whatever. And then for the rest of the set has been applauding and laughing at the person on the stage. And you're like, you just wanted to put a card up for the sake of putting a card up to show I've got
Yeah.
power. And then you've kind of just ruined it all by getting rid of the person, being a contributor to getting rid of that person when you've been enjoying them. It's a really
Yeah,
weird dynamic.
it's very weird. I also think, I mean, I did get something out of it, even in that short minute. Was like, sure, like I didn't even tell the jokes I wanted to tell because I just got so nervous. I just blurted whatever came to mind. But it was like, you have to be very, very good to just like jump on stage, have the right energy, and really get that connection with the crowd right away. And I failed to do that. I mean, yes, I had a lot of things against me, I think, but I'm thinking, well, maybe an experienced comic who is, pretty good at that stuff, maybe they would have pulled it off. Maybe not, you can't predict these crowds.
No, no.
But of course, the minute I said where I'm from and they were just like not really like into it, you have to try to really make that connection. And I didn't do that. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the last time it went better, because I had that topical joke. So okay, you're making a joke about the king. So that brought them in right away.
There's so many factors in all of this. So what about the best moments you've had on stage?
Oh man, one of the best ones was actually when I was doing one of the heats. Well, I think this competition, the So You Think You're Funny.
Yep.
Which I have so many things to say about. But when I did my initial, yeah, because they don't do heats. You just sign up and then they just give you a day and you go and and they see a bunch of people that day. I was like also very, very new, like very, very new, like few months in. It was, and that it was at Angel Comedy. And that day when I did my 7 minutes for that show, it went so well, like so well. Even I thought, God, even if I don't get through,
Yeah.
the people loved this stuff. It was really, really busy. It was packed because I also think a lot of people went to support their friends that were doing that heat. Yeah, it went super well. I was like the roof, like everything landed. It's one of those few times that every single line just lands.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man. And then after that, yeah, I've had a few gigs that have gone really, really well. But that was because I remember it because I was also very new and I felt very happy that I'd gotten so many laughs.
And did you get through?
Yeah, I was in the semifinals, but then after that, I didn't get any further. So I don't know. It's such a it's such a weird competition, I have to say.
Yeah, I've never entered it. I think I'm actually too late now. I think I'm out of the window time frame that they allow people to go.
Here's the thing. A lot of people don't give a crap about the rules of So You Think You're Funny. Starting with the people that organize it. So, because my frustration with them, I mean, look, it's a great initiative and I think they've discovered a lot of wonderful people and it's a platform for a lot of people. It's a fun competition. They do it in Edinburgh. Even if you don't get through, you get to perform at this beautiful stage, which is with a packed room in the middle of the Fringe. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And the lady who's like the initial filter for that, she's absolutely lovely. Julia is wonderful. She gives you advice. But what I found a bit disappointing was that when I was in the semifinals, there were some people in my heat and some people in other heats, and also speaking to other friends, that were 5 years into comedy. Some of them had opened for professional comedians. Some of them changed their set. One of the rules is that you can't change your set. There was a girl reading off her hand in the heat, like in the semifinal, and she got through to the final. So I'm like, okay, what are the rules here then? A lot of people that even made it through the final did not comply with those rules, and they didn't do anything about it. So, and I don't think the guidelines are clear for that. Then be more specific. What is
Yeah.
it? It's 15 gigs until up X point.
Yeah.
It's not a measure of anything. And it's very easy for people to also hide how many gigs they've done. But you can't be policing when you're screening 500 people.
Yeah, I can imagine that's probably quite difficult to go through and go, well, yeah, how long has this person's Instagram been open for? That kind of thing. And you look back and you kind of go, well,
And yeah, and some people maybe were doing comedy for years, let's say in America, and then sure, you've been doing comedy for 3 months in London, but you're not new to comedy. So but if somebody has been a stand-up comedian in a different country for a long time, you're not in the same
yeah, it's not.
as some dude who started 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's not really. I just wish they would clarify that a bit more. Or am I sore that I didn't get through? Yeah, of course I am. But at the same time, sure, maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I was shit. That's fine.
Yeah.
But at least level out the playing field,
Yeah, I understand what you mean completely. So when you were preparing for all of that, was that based around like the first ever set that you wrote?
Yeah, based off it wasn't exactly the first 5 minutes I wrote, but it was, I would say maybe most of it was from because it was a 7-minute set. So I would say most of it was all based off the first five. And then I remember throwing in some jokes about beauty pageants and stuff, because that's a big thing in my country. And I'm revisiting those now. There's a lot to dig about that, by the way. And then what else? And then I threw in some dating jokes as well.
So can you remember the actual first joke you ever wrote to tell on stage?
It was and it was really shit, actually. I don't know if it was the first ever, but when I told you I was like, I did like a 3-minute, I did the shitty mic in Barcelona, and I did like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I had a joke in there about, because, I've worked in the fashion industry. So, but as you can see, I'm not zero glamour. Like that's not really how it goes.
Yeah.
So it's like, when I tell people I work in fashion, so they ask me for fashion advice. All I wear is black. Oh, do you want to look like a depressed widow? I mean, something like that. It was something like that. And it got a bit of a laugh.
We all start somewhere, though. We all start
somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It's all part of it. I mean, this is the fun thing is the first ever joke is probably never going to be a great joke. But it's the catalyst for you building upon something and learning from that. I always find. And
I mean, at least it had a little bit of a joke structure.
Yeah. It's probably a lot better than my first ever one. So,
yeah. Did you ever take a course?
Yeah, I took a course a couple of years ago in London just to do one gig and have an experience, and that was it. Not to do stand-up comedy, just to try something new for a laugh, like kick it off the bucket list kind of thing.
Yes.
The course I thought was it was really, really good, but the one thing I know, there's some people who say, oh, you can't teach funny, you can't do this. Courses aren't for everybody, but sometimes the course is the little nudge that helps you get there. Because I had no confidence in being able to go on stage and tell a joke. I can stand in front of 200 people and give a works presentation, but to stand in front of 20 or 30 people and tell a joke and make them laugh, I had no idea. And then being able to go through that with other people was kind of like the support network that you get. So I really enjoyed that part. Which course did you do?
I actually did it with an improv school, not even like any of the famous stand-up people out there teaching stand-up. And I'll tell you something, I've taken other courses after that I don't think I needed it, because after you learn the basis of stand-up, it's just you working on your stuff, really. I think I did it just to get into an environment that, encouraged me to write. And I took it with Hoopla.
Okay.
They have, I mean, it's an improv school, but they had it. The thing is that also where they teach, it's really close to where I live. So it was basically out of convenience. and out of familiarity with the school. I mean, doesn't if a school is good at improv doesn't mean they're necessarily be good at stand up. But honestly, they have a couple of teachers for the level 1 stand up. I took it with Nick Hall, and he's a wonderful guy. He's a
Yeah.
lovely guy. He's a very funny guy. You don't see him gigging around the circuit, because some people will be like, "Oh well, but this guy isn't even gigging at the moment." And he's a great MC. He's a really really nice guy. What I like about him, he was like, when you're doing your set and he takes notes, he's really
Mm.
good at spotting stuff, and he gets who you are right away and
Yeah.
gives you like really good notes. So for a basic course, I think it was perfect. It was great. It was exactly what you need. If you're looking for something really more specialized or more pro, then okay, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But for somebody who's never done a set in their life, he will teach you like all the basics, and he's really good at helping you figure out a little bit who you are on stage, and then you get a show at the end, and the crowds are really nice, the what they organize.
Hmm.
And I don't think it was even that expensive. It was like very reasonably priced. So for me it was great. Like, and I sometimes I still email him for coaching or something. Really really cool guy.
Yeah, I do the same with the guy that taught me as well. Every so often, I'll drop him a message and say, "Have you got a couple of hours free to go through some bits?" And
Yeah.
he will go through it and look at it and go, "Yeah." It's quite interesting to see what his reaction is. Always say to him, "I'm not going to send you the video in advance. When I do it on Zoom or whatever, and we both look at it at the same time because I want to see your natural reaction."
Okay.
And that kind of thing. And that's always quite good to go back. If you've kept in touch with that person, they kind of become a friend. So you kind of just chat to them as well. And it's just good
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. I don't know. I think I might have annoyed the poor Nick because I'm a bit intense. Uh,
So how do you find things gigging in on the open mic circuit? Because you're primarily based in London, aren't you?
yeah.
But do you ever venture outside of London to do gigs, or is it mainly kind of sticking in and around London?
Well, here's the thing. Well, as you know, the open mic circuit in London it's rough and it's weird. And the thing is that what limits me traveling more inside the UK to do gigs is money, of course, because it's expensive.
Mm.
Trains are expensive, staying somewhere is expensive. If I had the means, I would probably be looking to just travel more. Because the thing is, London is so big and it's so packed and it has so many events that yes, like all the big cities. So I think there's too many shows for the demand. I don't really know if that's the case, but it seems so. So of course you get like, oh, you have to do the bringer stuff. Um, so I find that it might be more worthwhile to travel and gig outside because try different crowds, and because it's smaller scenes, they don't do bringers and you get full rooms,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
it's usually pretty nice. Like actually one of the best gigs I had was in Bristol.
A lot of people seem to head to Bristol.
Bristol seems great. I'm going to Bristol this weekend actually, and
Yeah.
yeah, and no bringering, 3 gigs, full rooms. Well, I'm hoping.
It's just really weird when you see you see a lot of people's Instagram pages and stuff, and they're off to Bristol. I'm going to Bristol, and you're like, it's just a really strange place from where we are for people to you think people are going to. But there seems to be a gravitas of people traveling that way. Like I think like the scene in the Midlands is growing as well. So I think there's a lot of people heading up to like Derby and Leicester and Nottingham and stuff like that
Mm,
as well. Especially
yeah,
I guess with the Leicester Comedy Festival that's probably going on around about now. That's
yeah.
attracting more people there, which grows comedy in that area, which means people want to put on nights, etc., etc.
Yeah, I would definitely be more. I would probably look for spots in Leicester or Manchester or whatever else. I just don't have money to be doing all that traveling. But
Yeah.
actually, and also people in Bristol, very friendly, unlike here. Okay. Because I messaged, there's like this girl, her name is Emma Hughes. She's absolutely wonderful. She's a comedian based in Bristol. She's hilarious, absolutely wonderful person. And I used to run a showcase, and I had her on my showcase. And then I messaged her. I was like, hey, what do you recommend? What gigs do you recommend? And she just sent me a list of gigs. So like I got in touch with a bunch of people, and in minutes they were like, yeah, of course you're on. Like so friendly, just offering me the spots, and I was like, oh my god, just like London. And one of them is even like gonna pay me and stuff, so that's wonderful. And it wasn't really difficult to get a spot there. Also, I went up, I just did that one gig, and one of the comedians was on the lineup, and so he had seen me and he thought I was funny. So of course that's why when I asked him, then he was happy to put me on.
Yeah.
And I had that and Emma had put in a word for me, which obviously helps.
Okay. You just touched on you used to do a showcase night.
Yeah, knock knock comedy. We might bring it back, but it's just so much work to run a night. It's
Yeah.
just so much work. And we didn't want to do, there were so many open mics. We were like, well, what are we going to do? Another open mic that people just, I'll bring her. No, we're not
Yeah.
going to do that. Because I was running it with Chris Ford, who is actually, he's doing super well in comedy. He did, he's a super lovely guy. But we've both been like super busy with stuff. And I think he has something he wants to take up to the Ed Fringe.
Yeah.
So I think he's focused on that. I haven't even been able to meet up with him. So because we've all been like super swamped with things. I mean, ideally, yes, we would love to run it again. It's just what's the hardest is getting a crowd, like a nice, proper crowd in. Promoting is the hardest the part, because comedians, everybody wants to be, everybody wants 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. We get loads of messages for spots. And we didn't have more than 6 comics at a time.
Okay.
And we had a mix because we thought what we wanted to do was, to be honest, when we started, of course, we did not know what we were doing. We were just like, let's run a show, because you're starting out and like, yeah, great idea. And it went well. And then a few, like 3 shows in, we were like, mate, this is like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, what do we want to do with this? We started to really question, what do we want to get out of this? Yeah, we have fun running the show. We meet a lot of really cool comics that we like, that we think you should see these people. And that's kind of like how we pick the lineups. And we were taking turns at MCing, but we were running it every 1 or 2 months. So it's not like we got to MC very often anyway. And then the last one was just so hard to fill because it was summer. And we had Dee Allen headlining, and she's absolutely amazing. And it was summer, and people were watching the Olympics, or I don't know what other, or was there football last year? I don't even remember. There was just like a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I think also during the summer, people don't want to be inside. They don't want to be inside in a pub watching people tell jokes. It's like, it's summer. We're not that depressed. We don't need somebody to make us laugh. So we got people in, but yeah, we were relying a lot on Chris's network as well, because he has a bunch of people that work with him that love comedy. Yeah, so we always thought, like, if we're not gonna run a show properly and we're gonna get in a good crowd, then it's probably not worth doing. And we started to get better and better headliners, because we got people that gigged with us, comedians gigging with us, were very happy. Everyone did super well because it was such a wonderful crowd. And yeah, we got like a good reputation in that sense, like, oh, this is nice crowds, comedians do well. So we wanted it to be like a little bit of a stepping stone in a way. So it wasn't another open mic. It was like a curated showcase. It wasn't like a pro showcase. But let's say somebody who had been like a few months in the circuit that had a nice tight 5 or a good 10 minutes. We were trying to do something like a little in between, that it wasn't like a crappy open mic, but obviously we're not professionals, so we're not going to do comedy store stuff.
Yeah. It's more about trying to give those people that are these strong 5s, give them 7s, give them 10s, and showcase what they can do.
Exactly. It was like a bit, let's say you're a comedian that hasn't been going on for long, but you're not going to get booked at a club yet. But you could do a set that maybe felt a bit like that you were like gigging at a nice club, because it was a proper audience. It's not a bringer comedian audience. It's like crowd. And you had a really good headliner, a professional headliner. That kind of vibe is what we sort of tried to do. And I think we managed. It's just like, but putting a high quality show, it takes work. So that's sometimes when I bitch about other shows, I'm like, no, dude, if you're gonna do a shitty show, just don't do it. When you get to these places that you're like, what the hell is this? We've all been to those.
Yeah, we've all done those. So talking of shows then that you put on, you have a new show, split bill show coming up.
Yes, I'm excited about that. Also, yeah, it's hard to promote. We're doing it actually at the same venue where I was running my showcases. I'm doing the split hour with a comedian called Mariah Girard. She's based in Barcelona. That's where I know her from the Barcelona scene. But she's from the US, and she's been going for way longer than me. I don't know, I'd say around 6 years or so. and she's very, very, very funny. I mean, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be doing a split bill together. Yeah, she's won like all the competitions in Barcelona. I don't know if that means anything in the comedy world, so to speak. But in fact, in Barcelona, the women are way better than the men. I will
Yeah.
say, yeah, female comedians, the best comedians in Barcelona are all women, and that's in my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree with me. And Mariah is definitely one of those comics. She's like absolutely amazing, very, very funny. And so we are. It's called "Am I the Asshole?"
Okay.
Because well, you've seen some of my stuff, so you kind of see where I'm going with this. It's just so I think we're both like a little bit mean and a little bit like fed up with everyone. We both connect in that aspect that we're like, we feel like we're surrounded by idiots the whole time. We both have that sort of view of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to also like reshape a little bit. I mean, I don't have to do too much changing, but like in my sets, I'm trying to go over and just trying to hype that up, like heighten that sense of, yeah, because I'm always angry.
I wouldn't
Which
say
is
you're
good for
angry.
comedy. It's good for life. Maybe not so much, but for comedy, I guess that's good. So it's a good way to like channel, your negativity. So yeah, I'm always like angry. Like everything makes me angry. It's like, can you believe this? Can you believe that? And she's a bit like that too. There's enough contrast that you're not gonna see, two comedians doing the same thing.
Yeah.
No, she's so funny. Like I love her to bits. She's the best.
So the details on that are the location is.
Yeah, that's how good I am at promoting my show. I haven't even told you where it is. So it's going to be at the Castle in Aldgate, the Castle pub. It's right off the Aldgate East station. It's in a corner. It's a big pub, and it's on the upper part. It's really beautiful room. It's on the 27th, so 2 Thursdays from now, 27th
27th of
of
February.
February. Doors at 7. It kicks off at 7:30. Because we need to wrap up like a little bit early, and we're gonna have Helen Kay present us.
Oh, okay.
And and it's going to be, this is the thing, it's going to be like the first time I do a full 30-minute, or a longer set. It might be 25. Let's see how far I get. And Mariah has done this loads of times. She's a pro. She's done Fringe. She's done, I think, a full hour at the Fringe already. She's done split bills. So I mean, for Mariah, this is just like, another Thursday in comedy. And for me, it's the first time I do like a full half-hour set, but it's gonna be super fun.
Greetings, listener. Sorry for the interruption. It's John Payne from episode 41. If, like me, you're loving this episode, in the hot tub with 9 merchant sailors, listen to your higher self, consider giving it a 5-star rating, and follow the pod on whatever app you're using. It's the right thing to do, right lads? And Mark will be forever grateful. Now, our helicopter has arrived, so I must beg your leave. But please, enjoy the rest of this absolute humdinger of an episode. Jesus!
So how have you found the preparation for doing that?
Well, here's the thing. I did have somebody help me out, like go over, like I'm reworking some of the really old stuff from the first sets, because I think after you've been gigging, you had those on hold for some time, and I'm just like going over and seeing what I can change, if there's anything I can punch up. Also, something that will make me excited to tell these jokes again, because you repeat the same joke so many times, you will get really bored of it. Now I'm just going over everything that I have and seeing what is the best, because some of it obviously is not tight or quite there yet. Because I know I have at least 15 minutes that are, I think, good. And then now I'm just kind of ironing out another 10 or 15 that are not quite there yet. Obviously not easy. And you know what's actually hard? That it's very hard to get a spot longer than 10 minutes, at least in my case, because I'm new and because I'm not a pro. So I'm trying, I would like to have more experiences doing a longer set, so I can really iron out how some bits work into a longer story, you know? Because when you have 5 minutes for some stuff, you need to establish a few more things. 5 minutes is good for testing out like a few quick jokes, but you can't really.
You can't really get a complete story out, can you? Because you don't know what the flow is going to be like. You can go to one open mic and do 5 minutes here, go to another one, do 7 minutes here, but you don't know how they fit together in one seamless thing. I guess that must be quite difficult to know and put together. How you find the space to do that, I have no idea.
I mean, that's probably something I'm struggling with because I'm a very new comic and I haven't done longer sets professionally. If somebody, maybe, I doubt any professional comedian is going to listen to me talking about this. I don't know. Maybe somebody who has done a bunch of hours, they already know how to do that, how to, maybe test jokes 10, 15 minutes at a time, or 10 minutes at a time and have but from what I've seen, pro comics gig, they get on stage for like 20 minutes at a time of new stuff, entirely new stuff. So yeah, these are things that I don't know because I'm just very new. I mean, somebody who's a pro or a promoter that's been listening to this might be saying like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But yeah, probably because I don't know. I haven't done I haven't done a whole hour, so I don't know. I've had the immense privilege of seeing Michelle Wolf work out material because she's based in Barcelona, so she gigs there a lot. Sometimes you're at the clubhouse and she'll just show up with a notebook and she will talk for half an hour, and then 3 days later she shows up again and talks for another half hour, and it's completely different stuff or some stuff. But obviously I can't compare myself to somebody like that who's been doing this for God knows how long. And other comics that I've seen that are pretty pro, they are a bit like that too. They just show up and talk for at least 15 minutes. And then from that, they sort of pick and rework it and then come back. But, when you're doing just 5 minutes, if you, like you said, if you want to tell a story or want to work a bit into a story, it's a lot hard.
Oh, yeah. So is the idea for this is a one-off show, or is it, do you want to be taking it elsewhere in the future?
For me, ideally, I would take this somewhere, but Mariah's based in Barcelona, so we don't have plans as of yet to repeat the show here, mainly because it's just so hard to get people in. Because if I told Mariah like, hey, we're gonna get a full room in April and in May, I could probably convince her to fly back and for us to do this show again. And for the Ed Fringe, I want to take something to the Ed Fringe. I've applied, and that's the thing, I don't even know if I'm gonna have the money. It's just so expensive. It's so expensive.
I think the accommodation costs alone are
and this year it's worse because there's AC/DC coming to during the summer. They're going to play in Murrayfield. I would love to go to that, by the way. And Oasis. So the accommodation right now is insane. It's just, so this isn't a festival for the arts, but I'm like, no, this is a festival for rich comedians or rich performers. It's what it is.
It does feel like that at times, doesn't it? When you look at, I don't know who it was. I saw somebody put up on Instagram about, they put up a map of Edinburgh and it had all the Airbnbs or the rooms for rent kind of flagged up with the prices on them. And they're like 9,000 quid. And you're just like, what?
I was looking into, there was a student accommodation type of thing that I applied for last year. I couldn't go in the end last year because I had no money. So I sold that to somebody. But I think I paid, it was technically, for a week, it was about 500 quid, which is a lot of money. This year, I got the quote for the same rooms. So, it was roughly averaging, I think, £70 a night. I'm not doing the math properly, but I remember I paid around, because it was 75 or 80 pounds a night. But then if you got the whole week, you had a little discount, whatever. But now the same accommodation that was 80 quid a night is 130 in 1 year. And I'm like, what? No. So I don't know if the miracle occurs that I get, I apply and somebody comes back to me and I get some sort of offer and I manage to find the money, then maybe I'll try to take something up there. But it's, by the looks of it, I don't know. I mean, for that kind of money, sometimes I would just rather travel somewhere else and just gig in different places.
Yeah. And I always look at Brighton Fringe as well, because that always seems, I don't know if it's because I live closer to it. It always feels a little bit more inviting for some reason, or a little bit less daunting, because you kind of say, if you go into the Edinburgh Fringe and you're like, that's a month. And if you're going to do the whole month, that's, I've spoken to a few people that have come back from the Fringe last year, and they're tired.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
That's kind of what I've heard. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's overwhelming.
So did you perform when you went up there, or was you
I
just
perform.
visiting?
When I went the year that I was in 23. I didn't go last year because I was just so broke. I had to cancel everything. Yeah, when I did the So You Think You're Funny, I stayed up there for like a week, and I
Mhm.
just hopped on some spots. I even did a little bit of improv. Yeah, I stayed at the student accommodation, which was actually cheaper than last year's quote is what I told you, and then this year I was like, what? And dude, I was like, also I was hemorrhaging money because I think they even the food I think they jack up the prices of everything.
Yeah.
I remember I just went in for like a curry, and when the bill came, it was like £20. I was like, what? This is rice and chicken. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I was so overwhelmed. I get very overwhelmed. It was just too many people, everyone flyering you. I did my semifinal. I did the spots, and I just got back, and I was just so happy to be back.
There was something I wanted to ask you about as well, is because you're multilingual.
Yes.
Do you perform in both languages? Well, how many languages do you speak?
I also speak French.
Okay.
I haven't performed in French. I would do it if I had the opportunity, but I would have to like figure out a set in French. That would be hard. But obviously first I want to try to do more gigs in Spanish. I've done it literally like 3 times only.
Oh, okay.
Because this guy Alejandro Fernandez, he's Venezuelan. He runs a gig in Spanish called Jaja Comedy, or Haha if you're Spanish. Or ha because we don't pronounce the H, but you know what I mean. Because in English you say haha with the H.
Yeah.
In Spanish you say haha with the J. Because for us the J is ha, not ja. But
right,
I don't know. I actually have to ask him how you pronounce his show. So he's been doing really well with that gig. I performed in his gig in Oxford. Now he's doing it at Backyard. He's doing it in Manchester. He runs it with Laura Ramirez. It was also super lovely. So yeah, I've been on that gig. I performed in Spanish once in Barcelona, and because I haven't gotten in the circuit, in the Spanish speaking circuit. But the thing, it's Barcelona, so it kind of has to be Catalan as well. And like, I'm not doing Catalan. Like, that's as far as it goes for me. And I emceed a gig in Spanish that I put together. Oh my god, that gig was a mess. It was just, the thing is that there was like this absolutely wonderful lady that was running a Latin American event, and she was like, "Oh, let's do some comedy in Spanish." I'm like, "Yes, but this is like a carnival festival type of thing. If you're gonna, comedy is different. You have to get people into that headspace.
Yeah.
If these are people that are going to a festival to eat, dance, and buy Latin food, you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think you can just stick comedy anywhere, and it actually doesn't quite work that way, which I've realized the hard way as well.
Comedy needs particular requirements for itself to work, doesn't it? It needs a room that's paying attention. It probably needs a room that's sitting down. It's hard to do stand up in front of people that are standing up and stuff like this, and a lot of people that aren't in it don't understand that.
Yeah. So she was like, so imagine. So anyway, I agreed to this. I had a fantastic lineup because I found really, really good comics. Except for one guy that was super weird and it was completely on drugs. It was so weird. He got up on stage and just started saying these weird things. I was just like, I gave him a light like 3 minutes in. I was like, yeah. So it was, imagine this was like already set up for disaster, because there was like this big room, and they were like this Bolivian dancers dressed in their local costume, just doing some dance, and then people were watching, and we had to kick those people out because it was time for our show. And then it was just, because I wouldn't say this was like a bad experience. It was just like insane. There's probably a bit in this somewhere. So we had to kick these people out. And then we had to sort of force people to sit down, because then we had to lay out all the chairs. So the people that were there, they were just talking, eating empanadas, like, and the also the audio was very weird. The stage was also very high, because it was like a stage for musicians.
Yeah.
For like some guy that is going to throw himself at the crowd, jump onto. This was just like not a stand-up stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was also a bit weird. Yeah, the sound wasn't the best. So basically it was just me shouting into, I don't know, a pool of people that did not want to listen to this.
Yeah.
And even some guys started complaining, like, we don't want to watch this comedy. And then he had to be kicked out by security because he was causing like quite like, and I think he was drunk as well. These people had been drinking since 11 a.m. And it was like 6 or 5 p.m. at this point. And then which was a mistake, I should have done a break, because when I did the break, a lot of people just left. Like the few people that were kind of listening. Yeah, I mean, people were talking the whole time. You were just talking into this room that they were talking. It was loud. There was echoey. It was so bad. And then when I took the break, this Colombian guy with a guitar just wanted to play a song. It's like, no, es un momentico, pues 5 minuticos. And I was like, no, we're doing stand-up. It was like, a musical break. I was like, no.
Dear, oh dear.
This is also like so typical of Latin people. They're like, no, it's 5 minutes. I'm like, and they were going to take up half an hour. He was going to play for like half an hour at least. And it was like, no, 5 minutes. I'm like, no. And the guy was just like plugging in the guitar he was setting up. And I was like, no.
You can imagine he's calling his mates in, who brings a drum kit in as well. And you're like, no, get out of here.
So it was just, it was like a comedy sketch, that whole show. But yeah, then like Laura Gomez, she did such a wonderful job. She really managed, because I sucked at the emceeing. I was not successful at bringing these people in. And I mean, fuck, like emceeing is really hard.
Yeah.
And I was doing it in Spanish, and then, but Laura really managed, like when she was her turn to go on stage, Laura Gomez, she does comedy in English too. She's absolutely hilarious. She was really good. She managed to get at least the attention of at least a group of people that was there, then they got really into it. And then Alejandro, the other Venezuelan comedian, I think he closed the show, and he was also very good. And he started joking around with these ladies, and he started calling them like his aunties. Like, he's like, I miss my family. My family's not here, but you're like my aunties. You're like my aunties. You're like my Latino aunties. And they loved it. And then he, so it worked out, like it was okay.
Yeah.
But oh wow, that was a rough start.
So what I wanted to actually ask about the bilingual part was, how do you find the different styles you put onto different jokes for different languages? Or do you use the same jokes but translated in a particular way? Or
yeah, that's a good question. It's something I'm still figuring out. There were some jokes you can't really translate them entirely.
Yeah.
It's more like adapting them, I would say. Because here's the thing, and it's something I realized. When I'm speaking in English and doing comedy in the UK, right? So it's like, I'm Latin American, and I think these things about you guys. And then maybe I'm shitting on the British or the Europeans, or, saying, oh, my culture, this is this way, you guys do it this way, and it's weird, whatever. This perspective of me making fun of the British, for example, right? Yep. Which is what everyone does, especially if you're foreign. Even the British make fun of themselves, of course. But then when you are Latin American and you're speaking to Spanish-speaking audience, they can be Spanish or they can be Latin, let's say. It's just like, we're in on like, guys, don't you think these guys are weird?
Yeah.
Because they come from the same perspective as me. So it's kind of adapting that point of view a little bit.
Okay.
So I have like a story about, because Venezuela is pretty dangerous. I come from Caracas, and Caracas is a pretty dangerous capital, or it was. But the thing is, the country is so shit, even the criminals left. I'm not even joking. It's true. like if you listen to the news, they don't talk that much about this, but out of all the things that Trump has been saying, there's like a band of criminals called Tren de Aragua, and they emigrated to the States. They're all over Latam, and everyone's trying to catch them. These
Yeah.
guys are like terrible. They're like a mafia. They're all Venezuelan. It's really bad. Because even the criminals, like the kidnappers, they now moved to the States. So, but it used to be at least pretty bad. So I have a joke about how bad the crime is. And then this happened in Barcelona, but depending on where I'm telling this joke, I adapted, and I'm a bit vague about where it happened, but it happened in Europe somewhere.
Yeah.
So I had a guy steal my phone, or try to steal my phone, and he wasn't armed, because there are no guns here like there are there or in the US. So I'm like, this guy tried to take my phone. He didn't even have a gun. I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm telling this to the UK crowd, I have to really make it very clear of this setup of my country being very violent. And that's why I feel like, what, a guy with no gun? Like, this is stupid. Whereas with like a Latin crowd or a Spanish crowd, that is, well, yeah, a Latin crowd, because Latin America, all the countries have similar issues with crime, right? I can just go right away and say, this guy tried to take my phone and didn't have a gun. They're all going to laugh.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because in Mexico, super violent. Colombia, super violent. Like, if they're from anywhere in Latin America, if I say a guy tried to mug you with no, they're already like, what? It's like they get that right away.
Yeah, he's a lazy criminal.
So it's that's kind of probably the main difference. And I think, and my humor in Spanish is a bit different. Sure, I'm the same bitter person, but it's
just said in a slightly different way.
Yes, but it's I can, what frustrates me a bit about doing comedy in English, because in Spanish I can do so many voices and so many accents.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so many. I was quite good at impressions when I was in school, so yeah, because English is not my native language, so I can do some of them in English.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of them come out just really offensive. So I don't want to get canceled, I can do Colombian accents, Argentinian, Mexican accents, and it's it's fine. But in English, I don't know how that would translate. Also, it would be in Spanish, so nobody would understand. But yeah, no, I'm not gonna try to do an Indian accent, because I just no, that's not okay. But I can do my Latino accent, like talk a bit more like this, and that's kind of part of my set. And there are some things about, and sayings, very specific sayings that I would say in Spanish that are just very difficult to translate, and it's something that maybe a Latin crowd would understand a lot more.
Yeah.
So I don't know if some of those jokes would be translatable, to be honest. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't know. I just remember, for example, like, and I'm trying to figure out this bit. Like, I went to get my passport renewed, my Venezuelan passport renewed years ago, which that's another tragedy. Getting a Venezuelan passport renewed is a tragedy. It's not like in a first world country where you just apply. You might have to pay a fee. No, in Venezuela, it's just like the basic stuff is, I mean, I could talk for hours on this, but just to sum it up, I end up getting an appointment at the consulate, and I walk in, and there's like, a painting of the unspeakable, that I'm not going to say his name because it's like saying Voldemort.
Okay.
The dictator, just say. Okay. So I'm like, ugh. And then the woman is like, she's like, oh yeah, come in. And there's like this woman in these tight leggings, heels. She's like the typical ministry worker. So, what's the word in English for this? So public service.
Civil servant.
Civil servant. Thank you very much. Because I'm just thinking in Spanish about these names. And she's like, mira, mami, pasa por aquí. Like, mami. Like who, where do you go to an embassy, a consulate, and the woman is talking to you like she's going to sell you empanadas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, listen, darling, come this way. It would be a little bit like that. In the UK, you would never dream of walking into a consulate. They'd be probably like, oh, hello, sir. What time is your appointment? Oh, yeah. Like very polite, very formal. Yeah. He's like, mira, mamita. He's like, hey, papi, we have your passport for you.
Yeah.
Who talks to you like this?
I like the British accent, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You should try and do a stand-up set where you do that in that your whole spiel is in that voice, and see if anybody works out that you're South American.
But I think it would probably sound a bit fake. I don't know. They would try to work out where I'm from in the UK. They're like,
yeah, probably.
Like, yeah, I one of my, Jim Hooker. I don't know if you've met him.
Yeah, many times.
I'm very good friends with him, and we've been having this joke going on for I think months now, and I don't know how it started. I think it was after Trump won the election. We were like doing Trump impressions and sending each other voice notes. And then I was like, I want to try to do more accents, because it's the thing I told you, like I can do loads of accents in Spanish, but I haven't. So I was trying to do a Scottish accent. So I've been sending him voice notes in a Scottish accent. Oh, obviously it's shitty. I was like, pull the hood from underneath, yeah. Like,
that's not bad.
I was like, oh, I'm very proud of you, and it just we're just sending it. I'm trying to send him voice notes in a very terrible Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And then he sends voice. We're just having like normal conversations in these voices.
Yeah.
It's just like we're like, yeah, like normal voice notes are they're just overrated. This is what. And then the other day I think I tried an Australian one. Oh God, no. And then I had been watching this show that all the actresses are Irish. Oh, yeah, Bad Sister, really good show. So then I was kind of like, so that sound kind of stayed in my head. So when I sent the voice note, I don't even know what that was. It was like,
we were at a gig the other day, and you started doing the Trump impression, didn't you?
Yes,
I'm sure you did, and that was very good. You handled that very well.
Oh, thanks. I'm like, should I do a Trump impression? Because it's so hacky. It's so hacky because everyone's doing jokes about Trump, about Elon Musk. It's like the hackiest thing. And everybody, especially comedians, everybody has a Trump impression, but it's just really fun.
Yeah. So I've heard many Trump jokes, but I haven't heard many Trump impressions.
Yeah. I mean, a Trump impression of what he would be like at a beauty pageant is quite fun to imagine. I mean, but him being the beauty contestant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not judging it. He'd have to be in the bikini and stuff like that. No, don't. Where are we going with this?
What I like about that joke the most is just making the audience imagine Trump in a bikini. Just sit with that for a bit.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
That kind of leads on to really like your favorite joke you've ever written. How has it changed over time, or has it just stayed as it first came out, or have you done anything with it?
My favorite joke. I mean, there's several jokes that I really like that I'm quite proud of. Yeah, one of my really favorite jokes is when I'm talking about the beauty pageants, and I'm just because I mean, in truth, what I think is I think they're stupid, but I have a little bit of a because literally nobody from the UK has won the Miss Universe.
Okay.
I actually looked that up.
Yeah.
Because my country's obsessed with the beauty pageants, and people always make jokes about the UK being ugly. So then I started, and there's one like, oh well, if you worked at getting pretty, instead of colonizing, they would have invited you over. But some joke I like that. But then my favorite joke is like, oh, what's Miss Britain gonna do in the talent section? Apologize.
I like that. I like that,
and I think that's funny. And then just of course it's shitting on the UK, and I there's one I really like, which is because it's 100% true story, and I don't know if people think I'm making this up. I still haven't figured out what's the best way to set it up though. If you have any ideas, let me know, because I'm talking. I mean, I was Spanish people. Spanish or even Latin Americans, Spanish as well. Like we just say stuff, and when I'm here, I get used to the culture here, people being reserved and like very polite. And then Spanish people just blurt stuff out and you're like, and I'm from there and you sort of get used to it again when you're there. But then I went to visit my mom in Barcelona, and she hangs out with this group of ladies they're all neighbors. And she had been talking about this lady for ages. Oh, she was talking about Pilar this, Pilar that. And then literally the day I meet this woman, she's like standing next to my mom and she's like, this is Pilar. She has kidney stones. And I have that in my set, like just like that. Like, this is Pilar. She has kidney stones. It was literally like that, and it was just so funny. I just burst out in laughter, and then, but and the lady, she wasn't even embarrassed. She was like, "Yeah, you have the kidney stones. What do you know?" I mean, this doesn't happen in the UK. You don't introduce somebody to say like a medical disease, like a medical condition. Yeah, medical disease. What other type of diseases are there? Non-medical diseases. So I was like, that's crazy, and I'm sure there's more I can dig into this topic of just like having no filter or just blurting stuff out, or saying things, it kind of inappropriate things, just like very casually, like it's normal. But it's happened to me so many times in Barcelona. So I really like that joke because it usually does get a big laugh, and it just feels very authentic because it's a true story.
It kind of comes out the blue as well, doesn't it? Really, it's not what an audience, a British audience, is expecting to be said, because it's just so far outside of the box of what we'd be used to.
Yeah, exactly, and it's so crazy that I think people think I'm making it up, but it's entirely true. Yeah. And then, and my mom knows I do that joke, and then last time I was there, she told me like, oh my God, something like the kidney stones thing happened to me the other day, because there was like a new neighbor that moved in like right across their flat, my parents' flat, and the lady came out, and I think she was Venezuelan, I'm not sure. She came out with this old lady that was her mom, and she said in front of her mom, "This is my mom. She has Alzheimer's." Is this a thing? Is it what people do? They just say introduce yourself or the person with a medical condition. It was, and crazy stuff like that, and they just say stuff like, one of the old ladies, I mean, to be fair, she had a tough life, but she was like, "Oh yeah, the day my husband died, best day of my life." And they just say this stuff.
Those sort of things will make any British crowd laugh because it's so far out the box that they're expecting. And I think that's the element of surprise is the thing that everybody loves, I think.
Yeah, of course, that's the thing. And some of the stuff I don't know, I think maybe they think I'm making it up, but I have the same issue with some jokes about a boyfriend, a guy that I dated for many years when I was in Venezuela, like my long-term boyfriend back there. He got kidnapped, and he was fine. Like, it was, and actually the story of his kidnapping is funny. Like, all the stuff that happened to him that night was like surreal. And he was the one who said like, "Oh, maybe you can joke about this." And I told him like, "Oh, I'm doing jokes about your kidnapping in the set." And he even said like, "Oh, remember this part? You should add that in." Like, so when I start telling this story, it's such a crazy story that people think I'm making it all up. So sometimes when I don't get a laugh, I think it's either because people are too like, should we laugh at this? Like, because they're like, "Oh, my boyfriend got kidnapped and this happened," and sometimes people are like, "Are we allowed to laugh?" And then some people laugh because they think I'm making it up, and like, is this real?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the guys, basically they surveyed him. They were like, so, because usually what happens, those are they're like different types of kidnappings, but usually, this was like what they call express. They just kidnap you for a few hours. They want some quick cash, like a quick, and then they let you go. They're not interested in keeping you somewhere for weeks. This is like, this was trending like a few years ago. So basically they just block your car. The criminals come in the car and they just find a way to like block, and then they get in your car and take you, whatever. Right. So when they took him, they blocked, because there were three guys. It was my boyfriend and two friends that were heading home from a party. One of them was absolutely hammered. He didn't even know what was going on. He thought he was in an Uber that got lost or something. The criminal get on the car where my boyfriend is, and they're like, "So, how was the blocking? Was it good?" He was like, "What? You're genuinely asking me how can I kidnap you better?" And that happened, and I mean, the way I phrased it is just like a bit more simplified than that, but obviously I'm not gonna go into all of those details. But people that are like, "What? Really?" And I'm like, no, really.
You want to kind of do it so that the at the end of the kidnap experience, when you've been let free, they get sent a survey to get a review on Trustpilot or something like that.
Yeah.
How was I treated out of 5 stars? What were the conditions like?
Yeah. That's more or less. It's like, oh, sorry, you want a review on TripAdvisor? Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to. I'm reworking that bit a little bit. I don't know if because I that's more or less what I say. Like, oh, what you want to review on TripAdvisor? Great quick capture, great intimidation of 5 stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's like this. That's
Would
how Yelp got started. I don't know.
would I recommend it to a friend?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a imagine like so what they do is they drop you off, or at least that's what they used to happen. They would drop you off in your underwear.
Okay.
Yeah, they take your clothes. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. I mean, luckily it's a tropical country, so it's not really that cold in the
Yeah.
evenings usually. Can be a bit chilly, but nothing compared to the UK. So, and he told me that when they got dropped off like at 3 in the morning in some dodgy random, imagine like they drop you off in, I don't know, Slough or something like that.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Some, I don't know if Slough is dangerous, but I mean, not probably not compared to Caracas, but like, in terms of distance and just randomness, right?
Yeah.
And then a car stops with the intention to rob them.
Mm.
And the cars, the guys are like, "Oh no, they've been robbed," and they just like just kept going.
I'm sure there's something you could do about somebody selling the clothes they're taking off their back as well. People are hunting through Vinted to look at where their clothes are nowadays and see if they can get them back because they really like that pair of jeans.
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah, it's a crazy, crazy story. Yeah,
Let's go back to the show then. If the show goes well and you've got you get a nice higher profile out of it and you start doing bigger and bigger gigs, and then you get asked to be on Live at the Apollo or a Netflix special.
yeah,
Dream.
that's.
You never know. You never know.
Oh, thank
And
you. I will embrace these vibes, as hippie as
yeah,
that sounds.
and then the producer sits down with you and says, "What music do you want to walk onto the stage to? What would you pick?"
I guess it depends to what I'm listening to at the moment. I've become a big fan of this Argentinian duo.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a little concert in London last year. I mean, they're not that new in Argentina, but their Tiny Desk went viral. It was the most viewed Tiny Desk last year. These two guys, Catriel y Paco Amoroso. I love these guys. I love their music. I think they're incredible. It would probably be one of those songs. It would probably be La que puede puede. That's a good song because there's like a little bit of that song that he talks about money, 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 and it's become like a bit of a mantra for everyone. There's
Right.
like a bunch of memes, but yeah, if you're not from Latin America, you probably are unfamiliar with them.
Yeah.
Unless you know.
So if you got somebody, a friend of yours, then's coming up to you and asking you, what's the one tip you'd give me about starting stand-up comedy? What's the tip you would give them?
God. So I think taking a course, even if it's a very basic one, will get you in the right headspace. You will meet like-minded individuals that also want to write, and you're also helping each other like write with the writing, with the ideas. It's a good environment to get in that for that reason. And
Yeah.
at least somebody that's more experienced in comedy that can teach you like the basic mechanics of how to write a joke. That's a good starting point. And what I like about a course is that you at least come out with a 5 minutes that is pretty decent to gig around. Because if you've had like a little showcase, you've had some friends listen to your jokes, like the people in your class, the teacher help you tweak the bits. I mean, it might not be a great set, or it might be great set, but you have some good jokes in there, some punchlines. So because, dude, it really sucks when you go to an open mic and you see these people that get up on stage and they are just blabbing stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, mate, please just write one joke.
Yeah.
One joke with a basic setup and punchline, even if it's not the best joke. Just, write something that is at least in a basic joke structure. We all start from there. Maybe you then evolve and, do something more sophisticated, whatever. But at least for starting, for your own sake and everyone else's, just
Yeah.
yeah, because there's a lot of people that just get up on stage and they think they're Dave Chappelle and they could just start blabbing on stage and they think that's enough, and it's not. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start. That's my recommendation. I think it's a good idea to take a course, even if it's a very basic one. If you're not a fan of that, then try to get into maybe like a group of people that write comedy, stand up, and that could also help. Then they can teach you how to start like writing. But I think it's good to get the basics of a joke structure, even if it's like a mechanical thing or a that's what I think.
So on the open mic circuit at the moment, is there anything you'd like to see change about it?
Well, one of the things that there are some things about the whole open mic and the bringer gigs that I have a few opinions on, but mainly what I do think is it's very important is that I've seen this a lot, and we've all seen this, that you get to an open mic and there's usually some guy that has some really offensive material that is not even good. It's not because it's not like it. That's the thing. They get on stage, they say a bunch of really inappropriate things, misogynistic things, uh, racist things. I mean, yeah, we both saw an episode of this recently, right? A guy who basically bombed the entire set, and he was saying very inappropriate stuff, very offensive stuff. Everyone was uncomfortable. And what shocked me the most, I'll tell you, was that after the gig ended, I heard some other male comics talking to this guy, and I kid you not, I heard about 3 times a guy go to him and say, "Well done, mate. You got to take risks." No. When you see a guy that's doing this kind of material, you have to tell him that it's inappropriate and that they shouldn't do it. Because, of course, as a woman, if I go up to him and say, like, "Well, those jokes about beating women up, not okay, dude," he's going to be like, "Oh, well, this woman get offended. They can't take my edgy material." Like, no, your material is crap. That's not even material. Okay. So, of course, it has to be the other men. It has to be the guy running the gig to tell this guy, "You can't do that shit here." I think most men don't encourage it, to be fair. I don't think they encourage it. Maybe some, but most men would probably not encourage it, but they don't say anything. They don't address it. And I've seen this so many times. There was a gig that I don't think that gig is on anymore. There was a gig in Shoreditch that, basically anybody could get on. Anyone that showed up. It was a little bit like show up, go up kind of deal. You could just, and there was a couple of comics. I mean, the thing is, it's usually a very, very small minority of guys that have this, luckily, but it only takes 1 or 2 to really spoil the night for everyone else, right? Because most of the guys that got on there, they were just doing their jokes and they were mostly fine. But then there was like, let's say one night also, there was a guy that he literally went on stage and he said that he was openly homophobic, that he did not like gay people. Everyone was just kind of waiting to see where the punchline was.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, "Oh, is he making fun of somebody who's homophobic? Like, what's going on here?" No, this guy just, it wasn't even a joke. And then, of course, everything else he said was also very disturbing. So the showrunner, he comes back and he's like, "Well, I've given him a warning." Like, no, dude, you banned this guy immediately. It's not that he said one little joke that was a little bit passé. No, he just said on stage that he hated gay people. No, this person you ban. Canceled right away. Oh, I gave him a warning. Does he need to actually beat somebody up for you to not let him on stage? So it's this thing of the permissiveness. I'm like, oh, letting people get away. No, you have to be really strict on this stuff, because the what pisses me off, these guys will be like, "Oh, this material is too edgy for this crowd." I'm like, no, mate, that's not the problem. You suck.
Yeah.
Do you think Anthony Jeselnik got to be where he is just doing that? No, I'm right. There's a way of doing this material.
Yeah.
And also, the topics are so hacky. Start somewhere else. But, and I think some of these guys genuinely just get a kick out of making everyone uncomfortable. There was a guy that was doing, this was different, some mic up like last year. A guy that had some jokes about punching women, beating women up. And it was like bad. Like, basically said, I don't remember. Also, this guy, he didn't even know what era he was in, because he thought Liz Truss was still the prime minister. Just imagine what an idiot this guy is. And I heckled him. I didn't give a shit. I was like, somebody has to say something, because everyone was just like looking at each other like super tense. And the MC, he didn't say anything after the guy got off the stage. He just brought the next person up like nothing had happened. Yeah, just guys, just speak up. Like, I know the British are non-confrontational, but sometimes you have to a little bit. Yeah, that was a bit of a rant there, but it makes me angry.
Angry Gracie, who's back.
Yeah, it's just like, dude.
Let's move on to something a little bit more lighthearted.
Yes.
If you've listened to a few of these, I hope you've got to this part of a podcast before. I'd like to set you the comedian's challenge,
Okay.
which is to tell a joke from this joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid
Oh.
Finch. I don't expect you to do this in your proper set. Please don't do it in a proper set.
Okay.
But yeah, for anybody that's new, I like to set comedians a challenge to tell a joke from this joke book. We're talking, the title of the book is very apt, probably reflects more of your Christmas cracker jokes, but possibly worse. And the idea is that comedians get to pick a joke from the book, tell it on stage, everybody hopefully laughs, and we all go about our day. They can incorporate it into their set, tell it standalone, however they want. The only trick is they don't get to pick the joke by the words, they get to pick it by page number. So what they're going to get, I have no idea. So if you want to give me a number between 5 and 95.
Okay. 25.
25. And if a joke has already gone,
We'll do another one.
We'll do another one. But no, you are safe. So the joke I'd like you to tell on stage is, my girlfriend is on a tropical food diet. She's filled the entire house with fruit. It's enough to make a man go crazy. That's actually not bad. Trust me, that's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's very silly. It's a pun. Yeah.
Yeah.
A joke about tropical fruit diet.
I will send you a picture of the joke, and you can whenever the time is right to tell that joke, tell it, film it, and then put it on Instagram and tag us in it, and we'll share it about, and all have a good laugh.
Oh, okay. I have to do it on stage.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'll do it. I have a mic tonight. I might do it. Yeah. I don't care. It's a
cool. Lastly, then, where can people find you?
Gracie does comedy.
Mm-hmm.
That's my Instagram handle, Gracie IE with an IE, and that's about it. I don't really post clips. I might start, but I wanted to try to remain employable.
Okay.
It's very hard to promote yourself if you don't really update it often and post clips. But I do post on the stories a lot, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes I will have a little rant on the stories about my boiler being broken and my plumber ghosting me, which is worse than having a date ghost you.
Oh dear. Yeah. I hope you warm up soon then.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. No,
it's been an absolute pleasure. For everyone else, you can find us on Instagram at Open Mic Comedy Pod. We have a website, openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to us on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, and all of that jazz. And get these people heard. And lastly, I just want to say thank you again for your time today, Gracie. And for everybody else, I will speak to you all very, very soon.